So this month we've been talking about summer lovin'. And I think when we bring up sacred stories, I wanted to complete our sacred story with Greece. Because, it is a sacred story. Summer lovin'. Well, and if we remember, Danny Zuko had a great summer, as did Sandy, as they met on the beach. When they returned to high school and ran into each other, they still loved each other, but they had, as remember what we talked about that first Sunday when we were talking about summer loving, is letting go of our roles. That when we go off on summer vacation, or it doesn't have to be just in the summer, but when we go off on vacation, our roles drop. All those things that often we get attached to, or proving ourselves, or deadlines, all of that just drops away and we're free. And we can play with different ways of being in the world. And so Danny Zuko, when he was on the beach, didn't have to be the tough guy. He didn't have to be the leader of the gang. He could just be a nice guy. And that's the person that Sandy met. And she could let her sort of I have to be pure and good. She could let that down, her walls down a little bit, and they could see one another for who they truly were. And that's what often vacation does. It lets those walls drop away, right? That's why we like vacation, because we can just let go and just be ourselves. And what happens when we're just ourselves, we're a lot happier. As I pointed out, that's when they found love. They didn't find love when they were being in their perfect little roles, perfect for them. They found love, true love, when those walls came down. But then they went back to their world. And that's what today's about, starting fresh. What happens when we go back to our regular scheduled programming? We've had this great experience. We've experienced true love, or you've had this moment of joy or connection, whatever that is that you've enjoyed when you were away from your regular life. And then you come back, and there seems sometimes a disconnect. Often I hear people say, I don't want to be back at school, or I don't want to be back at work. I really loved being away. So what we want to do is bring back some of that energy, some of that vitality, whatever that thing that we experienced when we were away, when we let go, back into our work life, back into our daily routines. And if we remember, Danny didn't have an easy time of it, because he really did like his role as head of the gang and the persona that he had. It wasn't something he just wanted to drop. That's where his friends were, that's how he knew how to behave. But he also really loved Sandy, so he had to find a new way of behaving. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, is how to integrate those moments of high, those moments of freedom, those moments of lightness of being. Summer is all about lightness of being, and bringing it back we're going into the fall and winter months, to bring that back into our daily routine. And then last week, it was a little bit of a heavier talk, because we just had the incident in Charlottesville, and I was talking about sometimes we get the summertime blues, and blame comes up, fear comes up, some dark things start to come up. But what we find is that if we actually face those things, if we don't just project them onto other people, the problem with blame is you're putting it outside of ourselves. I'm looking out there and they're the problem. Fear is a fear of other. But if we start looking at ourselves, where do I feel fear? What am I actually afraid of within me? And start doing that work, then I don't get as fearful when people have different perspectives than I do. This past week, I actually practiced what I preached. You'll be very proud of me. There's someone on Facebook who felt very strongly and adamantly that the Confederate statue should not be taken down, and my perspective is they should. And I don't know this person, but they were clearly very angry, but I had done my work. So I engaged with this person about why I thought the statues should go down, and this dialogue went back and forth all week. But it never got mean. It never got vicious. He never attacked me with any words. I never attacked him. We were just sharing what our perspectives are, and it kept getting deeper and deeper and deeper to what was really going on, what was really underneath. And finally, it just came to this, how much love is in our hearts right now? In this moment, how much can we love? And I was asking him that, how well are we loving? And he said, well, it's hard because I'm a police officer in Pleasanton. I just feel people's pain all underneath. And he says, I don't get a lot of respect, and the media really talks negatively about police officers now. And I feel that I try to be compassionate. I'm really trying to be a compassionate person in my job. But I don't feel like I get respect back. And I said, I hear that. I get that. I actually did a research paper on police officers when I was in college, and it was what they have to deal with mentally every single day, the tension, the blame that they get constantly every day. I remember saying, wow, that is a career I couldn't even imagine doing. It's a heaviness. And so as he shared that, I just said, I hear how hard that is, and I respect what you do, as long as you don't give me a speeding ticket. No, I'm kidding. I did say that. He laughed. I respect what you do. And we have to learn to even love people who don't respect us, or we're never going to heal this planet. We're never going to be the communities we want to be. We're going to never be the nation we want to be. And we're never going to be the world we want to be until we start to love people who don't always know how to love us back. Because that was what we've been commanded to do. As God has loved us, we are to love one another. And how much does God love me? How much imperfection do I have? How much am I forgiven every single day for all the things that I do that are off or not right? And can I give that much generosity and love to my fellow human beings? One of my teachers is Jesus, and he says some pretty difficult things, to love our enemies, that if someone slaps your cheek, you give them the other one. To resist not evil. And so we had this wonderful conversation, and we had such a deep connection in love, where it started in different perspectives and sharing, always with respect. It got into this place of deep love for, okay, we can meet there. We recognize that we're not going to change each other's perspective, but we can still find in our hearts a profound love for one another. And what that gave me, when we got to that point with each other, Jack was there, I just felt such a lightness of being. When we do our work, when we get out of that blame and fear, and we can really say go deep into that love, suddenly that's what life is about. One of the great gifts about watching the news every single night of my life growing up is that it never ends. This duality, this fighting back and forth never ends. It goes on year after year after year, decade after decade, and it always feels really important. I was watching the news during the Vietnam War. I was watching it during the energy crisis, during the hostages being taken in Iran. I mean, and every time it's like it's like intense. Like there's always, when we're watching the news and we're reading what's happening, it's so intense and it's like the world's falling apart, but it just keeps happening day after day after day. So I have a choice to make. I look at history, I look at the news today, and I'm like, is this ever going to end? I don't know, but I can make a choice to be unconditionally loving for all of life, for all of humanity right here and right now. It doesn't seem like anyone has, in fact, I think the polarizations of duality seem sometimes more widespread than when I was young. I can't tell. I was little. I knew people were always arguing then, and I think we're going to always argue. When they created our country, they were arguing intensely. I think sometimes we have a sugar-coated idea of how this country was started. They were fighting viciously with one another, using very powerful language. In Lincoln's time, people were fighting with words. The fighting, these different perspectives, it seems like it's never ending. But we have a choice as lighthouses to keep our eyes single. I am here only for love. I am here only for love. And as a teacher told me, she said one of the greatest illusions is that you feel like you have a righteous reason to be angry at somebody. You feel like you have a righteous reason to say they're wrong. And she said that's the greatest illusion. When we know that there's only one power and one presence and infinite love, there's never a good enough reason to stop loving any other human being, ever, ever. And that's the practice that we are here to practice. And that's what we get to be by keeping our eyes single. And so this returns us to the idea of summer loving, because when we continue to choose that, as I got to experience this week, I actually felt great lightness of being that here is someone I had a very different perspective from, and yet the amount of love, because it's almost because we started in the darkness, the love seemed more brilliant when we actually got there, when we got to feeling deep connection with one another. Yes, he was very loving back. We went there together. It was a journey we went on together. It was fantastic, and it's light, and it's joyful. I'm like, this is what life is about. As long as we stay on the surface mind, the battling will continue. But we as spiritual beings are here to see God first, all the time. To be that light, single-eyed attention. Let our eye be single so our whole body is full of light. So we want to bring this light and this love, and knowing, when we know that we know that we know, there's lightness of being. It's like when I was working in a psychiatric hospital and I was so focused on oneness, that I didn't know I was doing it. I would be going up and down the hall singing, and someone got really mad at me. They're like, do you realize this is a psychiatric hospital? You're supposed to be depressed. And I was like, oh. I said, you're around depressed people. You should not be singing. And I didn't see them as depressed people. I saw them as the wholeness and perfection of God. I wasn't meeting them at the place of which they were operating. And I thought, no, I just see God here. There's only God, and I'm so delighted to be on this journey with you. And so I just annoyed people singing. I don't know. Either that or I'm a really bad singer, too. That's probably more of the case, But when we start holding that oneness, the heaviness of life, the darkness of life, and we do our work when the darkness does come up, we don't want to pretend it's not there, especially if we're projecting it outward, there becomes a lightness of being. And that's the same idea of the summer loving, this lightness of being. And so then as we enter back into our daily life, we want to go in with that beginner's mind, with that open-heartedness, the same open-heartedness that children have. They're just open. Their hearts are open. We want to enter back into our work life, not with, oh, I already know what this is. I already know my routine. How can I see something new today? How can I look at my coworkers in a new way today? How can I try something new today? Be spontaneous. When we're on vacation, often we allow ourselves to be a lot more spontaneous. We don't always have like this rigid, I got to get this done on a task. And we do. It's like this balance. We still have tasks. And I don't want to say I was thinking about be spontaneous, but that then feels like something we have to do. Just be available to spontaneity. Just allow it to show up and say, can I say yes to this? Even though it wasn't part of my schedule today, can I say yes to this new way of being? I just had a conversation with a teacher over at Valley Montessori School, and she was just so thrilled with her vacation. She said, I've never had a summer vacation like this. I went all over the country visiting old friends, and it was all about reconnecting, and we laughed, and we were silly, and we were goofy, and it was just so great to just let everything go and be silly and connection. So what she's chosen to do is take something from each of those connections that she had, and she wears it now as a piece of jewelry around her wrists and her fingers and to bring that summertime, to that memory of connection and silliness and lightness of being into her everyday life. So that's a very tangible and practical thing to bring the lightness of love, the freedom, back into our work life. Have little mementos. I know when I lived in Grand Junction, I used to sit out on this hill, and it has the biggest mesa in the world. And I would love to go into meditation. So I took a rock from there. This was years ago. This was over 15 years ago. What that rock reminded me is single-eye attention. And it's funny how that theme continues to come up when we just take an object from those moments that remind us of who we really are, that time of lightness of being. Because that's what we want to be all light. I don't think anyone here wants to walk around in heaviness. No one here wants to walk in anger. No one wants to walk around in hate. We don't want to be so right that we're just dense. We want to feel joy. We want to feel light. And we don't have to wait till the conditions of the world change for us to feel that. The other aspect of trying something new is bringing our spirituality into the workplace, as Jim was reading about today. It was funny because as I was writing that note down, I would say about a half an hour later, do you mind if I say what you said to me?
Yeah, sure.
So Jack comes in to my room and says, I'm thinking I'd like to start a meditation group at Valley Montessori School for before school. And I thought, that's when you know you're in the one mind. Where I thought, I just wrote that down. And it's a way to create a meditation group. Start something in your workplace. One reason why I was just reading about the beginning of churches and Sunday services. And we know that during the week we get so much density. We have all the duality. It's all pulling at us. The media, the social media, everything is just always pushing at us, duality, 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 duality. So it's good to come to a service on Sunday and be reminded, no, there's something that is so much more real, that is more real than all this duality. But what we want to do, that was years, decades, hundreds of years ago that this thing has started on having a Sabbath day. But what we want to do is where there's not so much separation, where there's not so separation between what we do here and the rest of our week. And so we want to bring that spirituality into our work. We want to bring it so we can actually start feeling with our coworkers a sense of community with those people who resonate with us. Start a prayer, have a prayer partner at work, create a prayer circle. Even a dream, like we're here to create a mastermind group for creating our dreams together. Or even, I was thinking about it this morning, it was making me giggle, because my brother actually works, my brother Rob. It's great to have unlimited brothers to refer to. He lives in Cleveland, and he works in a tech company, very similar to the tech companies out here in Silicon Valley. However, sprawling campus, they do all the same stuff here, but it's in Cleveland, so it's a much better rate of living. You don't have that high cost of living. So Cleveland's the place to be, just so you know. But he's posting this video of they were playing some game in the middle of the day. They were it was like a gym floor, and there was balls everywhere, and there was no purpose for it. They just played this game, and all I think is, I want to play. So bring play into your work. One of the things that happens at work is that's why people like those Google and those groups, because they bring play. I remember sitting next to someone who works for Pixar, and he was talking about all the things around their business that had playful pool tables, ping pong tables, and they would just go out into the common and start playing with one another. Maybe you can be the king of play, like in the middle of the day. We're going to play a game right now. Just who wants to play a game? And you can be that person who brings play. Because play opens us so to the light and love and joy of God. What's also nice about that is I see my brother really has taken on being a vegan, and he teaches yoga. What's fascinating for me is I can't tell when he's doing it at work and when he's doing it on his own time, because he's brought his passions into his work life. I don't even know who his boss are. I don't even know what he does, because all he talks about is he's brought what he loves into work, and they said yes. So he's brought people that in the vegan community, he's brought them in these lectures. So you're bringing your passions into your work life. What we are healing is the separation. What we want to heal is duality, where summer and winter are so far apart. Our job as spiritual beings is to keep raising our vibration where these dualities are becoming not so far apart, that we can bring God's light, this play, this joy, this love for everybody and everything, to be a vibrational frequency that is harmonious rather than disharmonious to everywhere we are. And we can do that privately, and I think everyone here does it privately, but we can start being courageous enough and bringing it a little bit more publicly in our communities. One of my favorite stories, I just thought of it this morning after I dropped Jack off. I read a book years ago, Finding God at Harvard, and of course a book like that interests me. And it turned out to be by a guy named Ari Goldman. He was a religion reporter for the New York Times. But what's interesting about him, he's now a journalism professor at Columbia. What's interesting about him is he's a conservative Jew. And they sent him to Harvard Divinity School. It was a great book. But the thing that I remember about this book more than anything, as a conservative Jew, he keeps the Sabbath. And for him, it wasn't when it was convenient. He kept the Sabbath, no matter what, which is a difficult thing when you're a reporter, when you're supposed to be available all the time. And a lot of religious things happen on the weekends. So come sunset Friday night, he can't drive. That's part of the rules. And he can't work on Saturdays. So something he couldn't keep private. He had to let his editors know. He let everybody know, sorry, I am unavailable. I can't do things on this day. So it was decidedly inconvenient. But as I was reading about it, it would get me. That's what I remember about the book. To have that conviction of what you believe in so strongly that it didn't matter who his employers were, it didn't matter, this is who I am, this is my faith, God is first in my life. There was a time where he was driving home from a story on a Friday, and he wasn't even close to home, and the sun set. So he just pulled his car. He wasn't allowed to drive. He in his faith. So he pulled the car over, parked, and just started walking. But Shabbat is Friday night, and he didn't have the things for Shabbat, so he went into a restaurant, and he ordered bread and wine, and in the corner of the restaurant, he did his own little Shabbat. That is someone who is committed to being spiritual and bringing spirituality, not separating it from his work life. And it actually infused all the work that he did, his own passion and his own commitment to his spiritual practices. So finally, we want to have that open Zen mind, beginner mind. Have that beginner's mind. We want to bring elements that when we remember things into our daily life. We want to take chances, try new things as we go back to work. We don't want to say, oh, it's the same old, same old. Let's bring our spirituality into our workplace, or for those of you who are not working, who are blessed to be retired, into your everyday life, into your everyday routine. Don't let your routine just be so routine that you close down. Stay open. Be spontaneous. And mostly we want to take care of ourselves. It's in our purpose statement. often when we're on vacation, we effortlessly take care of ourselves. It doesn't even feel like work. We eat nicely, we exercise, maybe just by playing. Not necessarily I'm going to go exercise, but we play a lot more. We're freer. We listen to ourselves because we have the space to listen to ourselves. We don't have constant stimulation coming at us. We know we have time to commune with God. The Dalai Lama actually said one of the best ways to use vacation is to do our spiritual work. That he didn't think people should go overboard during their work day-to-day life, but on vacations, that's the time to go to town on your spiritual work. Take care of yourself. Take care of yourself as you return to your routine. Give yourself space to listen, to follow those high moments of high resolve. That the daily life, the daily grind of your routine is going to come back to you slowly but surely. And so we want to stay aware of taking care of ourselves, because when we take care of ourselves, we take care of that which matters most. Because I believe what matters most to us is to be a place of love, to be a place of light, to be a place of freedom, to be a place of joy. And that's because that is who we are made in the image and likeness of: freedom, light, and joy. That's our essence. And so when we tap back into that when we're on vacation, the reason why we like it so much is because there's a sense of, that's who I really am. So we have to remember who we really are when we go back, and not let the dust and the grit of the journey confuse us. Remember who you really are. Remember who you really are. Remember who you really are. You are freedom, you are light, you are play, you are joy, you are fearless. You are unlimited creative beings. So I want to end my talk with a reading I'm sure all of you are familiar with, or at least many of you are familiar with. And as I always do, I edited it to make it a little bit shorter. So as we're getting a fresh start, we're returning from our summer of loving, and many of us are moving back to a more routine. I end with this reading from Howard Thurman. Keep fresh before me the moments of my high resolve. If I search with due diligence, I can always find a deposit left by some former radiance. But I had forgotten. At the time it was full-orbed, glorious, and resplendent. I was sure that I would never forget. In the moment of its fullness, I was sure that it would illumine my path for all the rest of my journey. I had forgotten how easy it is to forget. There was no intent to betray what seemed so sure at the time. My response was whole, clean, authentic. But little by little, there crept into my life the dust and the grit of the journey. In the quietness of this place, surrounded by the all-pervading presence of God, my heart whispers, keep fresh before me the moments of my high resolve, that in fair weather or in foul, in good times or in tempests, in the days when the darkness and the foe are nameless or familiar, I may not forget that to which my life is committed. Keep fresh before me the moments of my high resolve. Let's pray. And so we are even now being aware of this all-pervading presence. And what a gift it is to remember, to take this time to remember that this presence is never in fear. It is never in doubt or confused. It is never angry. It never condemns. It never judges. It never blames. It truly is almost beyond our human imagination. It just loves everything all of the time. It loves itself as its entire creation. As all the shades of duality pass through this wonderful I am presence, it just loves. It is its nature to love. It can't do anything else but love. It loves without condition. It loves without limit. It loves without judgment. It loves without reason. It loves because that's what it does. It loves. It is never anything other than this love. It never stops being love and being something else. It is love. And that this love is the all power of the universe. This love is the source of everyone in this room. It is the source of everything on this planet. This love is the I am presence. And how grateful I am to know that we are all made in the image and likeness of this love. Every single one of us, every aspect of our being, those places in ourselves that we might consider dark, not enough, limited, weak, and those places that we may enjoy about ourselves, those brilliant, wonderful aspects of our personality, all of it is loved equally. It is seen and known. We are seen and known. Everything we have ever felt and experienced in our life is loved and accepted right here and right now. What an incredible thing that we do not need to change anything. We do not need to fix anything. We do not need to do anything to deserve this love. It is given freely, unconditionally, here and now in this moment. It is always given to us. It has never stopped giving itself to us. May we have the eyes and the ears and the heart and the body and the soul to receive this love beyond our wildest imagination. May we accept it in every fiber of our being. Nothing is rejected. Nothing is turned away. We are loved, we are loved, we are loved. And it is from this place healing happens. It is from this place revelation happens, transformation happens. And as we know and feel this in our own lives, in every area of our life, our financial life, our work life, our relationships with coworkers, with our family and our friends, those that we love and are in our life every day and those we almost never see. It is love that we have connection as we connect with people maybe on social media we've never met, as we connect with people on the other side of the planet, as we connect and hear people that have different points of view. There is only love. Different perspectives behind all of us. There is only love. That is who we are. That is who we will always be. Time will pass. Events and conditions will change. But the one thing that will never change is this love. And what a great, glorious thing that we are all together here remembering to remember. It is only love. And that we are this love. And that as we go forth into our day and our week, we choose to see with our single-eyed awareness, with our single-hearted devotion, love in every single human being. Every single human being is made in the image and likeness of God, of love, of light. And that is what we choose to keep our attention on. With all our heart, with all our mind, with all our soul, with all our body, we love. We love. We love. And so today I invite us to call forth anything within us that we have in this past week felt something other than love. Something that might feel disharmonious, that you might feel angry towards, or we got irritated with, whether it's a small thing or a big thing. I just want us to call forth and be aware of those places where we did not experience love. We experienced something other than love. Just be aware of that now. And as we remember those moments in our days, in our hours where we are not that place of love, we open our hearts and we allow ourselves to be forgiven for forgetting who we really are. And we allow ourselves to forgive as we are forgiven. Mother, Father, God, forgive us, for we know not what we do. We are love. We are loved. We are forgiven. We forgive. This is heaven on earth. This is possible through us, as us, right here and right now. Thank you, God. Thank you, God. Thank you, God. Thank you, God. In deep abiding peace and everlasting joy, I release this word into the law of life, knowing that as it is spoken, it is already done. And I invite us all to say together now, and so it is. Amen and amen.
And so it is. And so it is. And so it is. Amen. 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 And so it is.